You good to go, Lee?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've called this the power of podcasting. Justin, thank you very much for reminding us. We've got a hashtag there, Industry Angel Live, and you can use some of our Twitter handles if you wish. I encourage you to do so. We're all about tech today. We're all about sharing across the globe, so please use those. So what is podcasting? It's actually an interesting term. It comes from iPod and broadcast together is podcast. And as you know, it's just a digital file. This is Art Bell. This is the godfather of talk for me. This is how I got into podcasting. This is the guy I blame. And if I set my lounge up like that, my wife would not be happy. But back in the day, this is what Art had to do. So Art was based in Nevada. And when dial-up internet first came out, I could access to the world of talk radio. So this is a show that Art used to host in the States. So as soon as I had the internet, I could then dial up and access some of these great talk shows and open my mind to some of the things that I was interested in. And Art's still going now. Bonus point if anybody can tell me what movie this is from. But it's actually from a book. It's called Fahrenheit 451. And ironically, the book is about firemen coming in and burning books. Books were banned in this book. And they made a movie out of it. And I use this slide because business books are all well and good. I love them. My friend Paul here is mad for them. I wish I had as much time as you to read them. And I don't. And that's what kills me. I don't have enough time. But I used to love them. I actually gave myself a challenge once to read the top 100 books. And I don't know if anyone saw Moby Dick, but it's not a very eco-friendly book at all. So that was a bit of a challenge. What I did it for, because I wanted to have a view on books. I couldn't say that I didn't like Wuthering Heights if I hadn't read it, which was a painful read, by the way. But I got quite far through, maybe 30 or so books, and then I thought, I can't keep doing this. I'm not going to get my challenge. And I turned to audiobooks. So I download audiobooks. So when I was traveling overseas or up and down the country in the car, I could listen to audiobooks and I could eat through them pretty quickly. And then I found podcasts. So I thought, well, why am I listening to these classics? Maltese Falcon really didn't rock my world. So I thought, I'll listen to podcasts, and podcasts more so what I was interested in. So if I'll bore you here, Sunderland AFC for my sins. I love aliens and conspiracy theories and secret military bases. So I was into all these crazy podcasts. And then I thought, why can I not do this? So I looked into the equipment, and essentially all we need is a microphone and a laptop, and you can start a podcast. But then you get a bit excited, a bit like Lee, and you start bringing all this new technology in. And so we have got a bit excited about it. But it is pretty simple to start. And when I wanted to launch a podcast, I did it just like you would a business. I had a strategy, and my strategy was that I wanted to get into iTunes new and noteworthy quite quickly. So I did a bit of research, and what I found was that podcasting was really kicking on. So this is about 3 years ago. There's a bit of a blip there in 2013, and that's because on the bottom there, they changed the definition of what qualifies as a podcast in this particular statistic. But it's been on a constant rise. Obviously, that is American. So we don't have much stats here in the UK, and this is something I'm quite passionate about, is to really make the UK listen more to podcasts. I think what we got there, 40% of Americans have listened to a podcast, and 24% of Americans have listened to a podcast in the last month. We are much lower than that. So as I said, I had a strategy to get into iTunes new and noteworthy, and I did it, I think, in about week 2 or 3. Which was quite crazy to constantly keep refreshing iTunes and hoping that Apple would give me that status. And they did. And it's stayed there ever since. So like 2.5 years down the line, it's still a new and noteworthy. So it's still a noteworthy a podcast. What is strange, I was looking this week, is that to get into the main Apple podcast, like the top 100, there's an awful lot of growth hacking goes on to get there. So there'll be a lot of unscrupulous activity to make your podcast hit those number one, and I haven't got that bandwidth. I haven't got the resource. I've got an amazing team here, but we can't sit and do that. Although Paul, you might be able to help me with that growth hacking. We'll have a discussion about this later. So technology, I mentioned all you need is a laptop and a mic, and I use something called Zencastr. Zencastr was a replacement for Skype. So if anyone here has used Skype, you'll know what I'm talking about, where you get them blippy voice over IP delays. Zencastr is browser-based, and it basically works in the cloud. So I'll be at one side of the Atlantic, a guest will be on the other. We'll both save our files up into Dropbox, and then I can access them, bring them back down again. So there's no delay. It's a really good bit of kit. Once I've got those files, I'll bring them into something called Audacity, and it looks like that. And it's really funny. I just look at that and I actually know what that is. That's how sad I am now. But that's where you can put your intros in. You can put your bumper music in, so at the start and at the end. You can edit any ums and ahs out. There's a lot of those, believe me. Any little bloopers, any guest sort of trips up. None of that today, Sean. We're not editing any of that out today. So yeah, it's really good Audacity, and it's a free tool, actually. Once I've got that file, I actually convert it into an MP3, so it's quite low memory for your device. I push that to Libsyn, which is a hosting service. I could put it on my website, but once I release the podcast, if everybody's subscribed, it goes straight away to your device. Now, if I've got that on my website, what you imagine would happen is it would probably take my website down. There'd be a lot of traffic coming to it. So I use Libsyn to host that, and that just gives me that RSS feed that then goes off to all these places. So it's great now. You know, we've got TuneIn, radio's really kicking on, Spotify. We're on Spotify as well. And has anybody used Spotify here? Sort of interest? Yeah, great. So we've been authorized to get it on Spotify. I noticed this week iHeartRadio is struggling as well. It might go pop. But it's good to get on these different channels. I think you need to be there because you've got to be where your listener is. Whether you've got an Apple device or an Android device, or whether you use Spotify or Google Alexa or all these home things, whatever it is, you have to be where your audience wants you to be. Libsyn's really good, which hosts my podcast, has given me some stats. And again, you can get pretty nerdy with these stats. What you can see here is that these are some of the countries where the podcast is listened to, and this is the United States, so the majority of listeners are in the States. And what you'd hope is a nice line. As your podcast progresses up and you gather more listeners across the weeks and months, you would hope that would be a nice steady growth line. And you can do things like understand where people listen to, so if it's a Chrome browser, if it's on Apple. And interesting, this is what I'm really interested in, is how many countries listen to your podcast. So this is last month. You can see actually the UK did better than the States last month. I need to do a bit of work in Kazakhstan, I think. And Africa, interesting enough, Africa, I put a post out on LinkedIn a few weeks ago about maybe wanting to get into Africa and put a lot of hashtags on Africa and coming for you, and because there's a lot of entrepreneurship in Africa. I'm really interested to try and break that bit. But you can see it's going pretty well in other countries, and what you can do is you can get this in a table format, and when you look down the table, you can think, like, why is someone in Iran listening to this? Why is someone in Japan listening? It's, I don't know, expats maybe, I really don't know, but there's over 100 countries. So what I do is once I've got that file, once I upload it, I do a little bit of a cover art using Canva. So I'll do a little bit of cover art, and then I'll push it out to all the social channels. Twitter is quite good for getting in front of people, and LinkedIn works really well as well. Once I've done that, I've also got a website. So it's becoming quite a bit of effort now. I haven't even, I've uploaded it, but I've still got to do some work here. So this is a website, industryangel.com. Every speaker has their own page, and we'll have show notes for each speaker. I embed the file into there so you can actually play the podcast through the web page if you wish. Sometimes I take sponsors. Sponsors really help because you can see they've got hosting costs to cover off. It's good for sponsors actually because there's SEO benefit. You can see this particular sponsor at the top there, they've got a link to their website. Well, when this goes across Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all them other channels, that SEO link follows them as well. So it's a bit of a no-brainer for them if they've got an SEO strategy. They can jump on board and help with the hosting. So as I mentioned about getting the Apple Podcast charts, you probably heard people talk about subscribe, rate, and review. That's a phrase commonly used in podcasting world because it's iTunes currency. So the more subscribers you can get, the more reviews you can get, the more rates, it just keeps you up in them charts. So there's my call to action today, is leave a review. What's hard about this is though Apple don't make it very easy to leave a review. I know we're on live and I'll be diplomatic. But yeah, it is quite hard to leave a review, I think. So what's my why? I was thinking about this week about, what to share. And it's to educate, motivate, and inspire. And actually, Paul reminded me something about this a couple months ago. Let's just have some fun with it. And that stuck in my mind as well. And doing things, it's good fun. But that's my main goal, is just to add value, create something really good, create some really good content from here in the Northeast. We mentioned about having fun, and this is us the last few months, and I've been blessed with some good friends who've helped me along the way. You can see Lee hustling in the corner. That's Lee on the top left there. This is all Lee's equipment, and what he does is he makes sure we go live through all these channels. It's really not as simple as just pressing the button, and he works really hard. And Paul here, Paul was actually on my show a few months ago, and we kind of got together after and said, let's do something good. What else can we do? How can we push this envelope? And he's just discussed today that we're going to do a podcast on a bus. So Paul's quite creative, and he's always pushing me to think of other things that works really well. We've got Gavin here, our official photographer. All these images are from Gavin. So we've got a good community. We've got a good team behind the project. So I'm really pleased with that. Got my wingman Jack here as well. He's watching anything that comes through on social. Any comments that come through? I use this slide to think about courage. So before this surfer catches that wave, he's got to do a lot of work. He's got to paddle hard with his hands. He's kicking with his feet to try and match that wave's speed. And when he matches the wave's speed, he'll feel a bit of a lift and he's bored, and then he'll pop up, and then he can ride that wave and enjoy it. So it's a bit like what I mentioned there. There's an awful lot of work goes into this just for the ride. So last night, I don't know if anyone saw us going live, but we went live with a Thomas the Tank Engine. What was it, Lee? It was like a kid's ride on toy in Lee's Hall, 11 o'clock at night, with all these cameras pointed at it while we tried to get the lives working. That was 11 o'clock last night. No one can see that. Terry and the team and Polly, trying to get people bums on seats here, getting the invites sorted out. There's a lot of work goes on just for that ride. So my little call today is for you guys is to think about what you could do to create some good content that maybe you might have done before. Now I know that you can't create a podcast today, but you might create a video today. You might create a live video today, and you get cars or walking around and just talk about stuff. Because I think social media is broken at the moment. I think there's a lot of boring posts out there. There's a lot of broadcasting stuff. There's a lot of buy my stuff, and there's no content. There's no good value. And that's just what we're trying to create today, is just some good value for somebody to listen to and enjoy. So that's my little call for you guys today. And this guy riding this wave, 10 or 20% of the time, he'll wipe out, and we will as well, where you probably put something out there and it won't hit the mark. That's fine. You just get back on and you just keep paddling. So it's a little metaphor maybe for today, is just to think about maybe creating something that you might have done before. And this is why. So this is me over the last couple of years, and because I've created this thing, it's led to a bit of this. So on the top left there, I've wrote an article for the Podattainment magazine. I was contributed to a book called The Book of Podcasting, which was launched just recently. I've been on numerous other shows. I was in a podcast conference, a business event. I'm an Amazon influencer apparently, so I've got my own shop. And I was up for an influencer award with Tim Ferris and Gary Vaynerchuk. And that's just crazy. That's just stuff that has come from this, which I've never would have thought would have happened. So riding that wave can lead you to something that you would never have really thought about. It can take in a different direction altogether. So again, my little call to action for you guys is have a think about creating something, and you never know where it'll take you. So take some videos, take some selfies, do some stuff. You've probably seen a lot of video now, so LinkedIn has native video. What's getting me a bit at the moment is people are sitting in the cars with headphones on, just talking about nothing. So what I really would encourage people to do is just get a bit more creative with stuff, with your content, and less broadcasty. This was sent to me last night by a listener to the show, who sent me this and said, I don't know if you can use this, but I was just having a little fiddle around last night. And we've got such a good community, people I've never met, people across the world who give me good feedback, and it's so rewarding. A bit like riding that wave, the exhilaration and the rush is actually just receiving feedback. You know, lots of tweets and lots of messaging. It's so rewarding. I guess that's my why as well. So that's my little presentation around podcasting. Is there anyone got any questions about podcasting or anything I've just said? Yes, Justin.
So I've SoundCloud. I listen to podcasts and content on SoundCloud. I've also seen people post on Libsyn. I think there's another tool called sort of Art19, or I can't remember what it is, but it's something like that. Why did you choose Libsyn? Because as a user, I actually value being able to sort of download things. It's almost as though, I think it's Moves the Needle have a podcast and they use Libsyn. And actually, as a consumer of podcasts, I found it more difficult to actually listen to things, or if like download them to my phone to listen to them in the car.
Okay.
So how do you choose which platform?
It's a really good question. So Libsyn is a bit of an industry standard, Justin.
Could you just repeat the question for the...
Oh, certainly. So why use Libsyn was the question. It's a great question. Something I toyed with quite a lot. It's a bit of an industry standard, to be honest, Libsyn. A lot of the big shows use it. And I wasn't really bothered about who the host was, because, to be honest, that shouldn't bother anybody who's listening. If you've got an Apple device or an Android device, it's the app that you use should drive how you listen. So if you've got an Android app, you might use Podcast Addict, Podknife, one of these things that just drag it down. If you've got an Apple phone, you'll use the Apple app. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter who the host is, as long as you can access it. Does that make sense?
So, supplementary question: have you looked at SoundCloud, and how does it match up against Libsyn?
I haven't really looked into it too much, because Libsyn just works for me. It gives me great stats. It's a really good price. There is things like Anchor that's out as well, where you can actually do it off your mobile phone. But I'm in the mindset of, my resource is quite tight. I have only got so much time, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. And it's a bit like going on social media. If you ever hear me talk about social media, what I say is just pick a couple of platforms and boss it. Don't try and be everywhere, because you'll just spread yourself too thin. So for me, Libsyn works. I think to unwind out of this now might be a little bit hard, and it's a really good product. It's really, really good. So I'm on live now, and if Libsyn are listening, I'll make a little bit of kickback off it. Anybody else got any questions? How do I choose the guests? I will remember to repeat the question, Lee, don't worry. Excellent question, really good. So people come to me with guest suggestions. So on my website, there's actually a drop down saying, do you want to suggest a guest? And what we'll do is I get a bit of a pitch. Interesting enough, last week's was a lady who's into PR, and she gave me the best pitch I've ever had. And I mentioned it on the podcast, and somebody actually emailed me and said, can I have that email? Can I have that pitch that you received? And I said, yeah, it's fine. Sharon let me share it. And the pitch was so on point, because she mentioned everything about me, about the show, about my company, about my accent. She just knew everything proper. I stalked it, you know, really good. And I just thought, how can I say no? Because she proved the power of PR and the power of doing your homework. You know, you get an email yourself, or someone will connect with you on LinkedIn and say, they don't even add a note. It's just like, how do I add you to my network? It's like, how lazy can you get? Tell me why. Why do you want to add me to your network? So Sharon really bossed that. It was amazing. So yes, people can come to me. People like you guys might suggest that I speak to somebody. They've just heard them speak somewhere. They're really good, really impressed by them. I think you should speak to this lady. I think you should speak to this guy. That works well. And then I'll do my homework as well. I'm interested in people who've just released business books on Amazon in the last 30 days, because I know that they'll want to get their message out. I'll know they'll be looking for PR. So they would jump on my show. Sometimes they might, and sometimes they might be pure rock stars and they think I'm too big for his show. But if they just released a book, sometimes they might want a bit more PR. So there's lots of different avenues. It's a really good question, because lots of people will use this as a sales tool. So they'll try to get on my show to push what they do. So a couple slip the net, you know, that 10 or 20% I mentioned about wiping out. Sometimes I have had a few slip the net where I've gone on a call with them and I just thought, if you don't stop telling me how awesome you are and add some value to my listeners, I'm just going to press delete. And I've had to do that a couple of times, actually. Americans. Sorry. British are so, they're just very quiet. We don't shout enough about what we do in Britain. So I'd love more British guests. I'd love more ladies as well. Somebody did send me a lovely email and give me the exact stats on how many ladies on my show I've had compared to a well-known other business show. And it was just, you know, really minimal amount. So I'm always mindful now to get women in business on the show as well. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, what we'll do then, we'll have a couple of minutes break and we'll set the technical equipment up for the podcast, and then we'll go live again. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So yeah, if you want to just pop outside for 5 minutes, grab a coffee or a tea or a bit.